On this episode of the Common Constitutionalist podcast, I'll be discussing the Smithsonian Institute and their effort to rewrite history by displaying the bust of a racist eugenist. Congress looks to be in disarray. As Boehner is out, Ryan may be coming in, and the world may be coming to an end on November 3rd, which just happens to be the deadline to increase the government's massive debt limit. And not everybody's laying off people like the Jeb Bush campaign. Look, the Border Patrol needs help. Yes, the Border Patrol is hiring, but don't try to find candidates on the campus of UC Irvine. Today on the Common Constitutionalist.
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist, broadcast from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
I was alerted to this by a good friend of mine and an anti-abortion activist, a pro-life activist, and frankly a hell of a guy. And I thank him for alerting me to this, and all of us, frankly. Smithsonian Institute. They're taxpayer funded. I think 70, 80, 90% of their funds comes from the federal government, which is us, of course. Anybody who pays taxes pays into the Smithsonian Institute to the tune of about $820 million a year. All right? So I'm not complaining about that necessarily. But within the Institute, there is the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. Okay? Fabulous. Within the gallery, there is an exhibit called The Struggle for Justice. Now, you would, first thing you think of is civil rights and you know, the black struggle in America, and I got no beef with that, and who would? And within the exhibit, there are portraits of Booker T. Washington and the MGs. Get it? George Washington Carver, there's Frederick Douglass, of course, Martin Luther King and whatnot. But there will be an addition to the Struggle for Justice exhibit by these famous and brave, courageous black men throughout history. The bust of Margaret Sanger will be proudly displayed within the Struggle for Justice exhibit. Are you blankety-blankin' kidding me that the bust of Margaret Sanger... Okay, here's a question. Would you put the bust of Joseph Mengele in the Struggle for Justice? Or the bust of George Wallace, or Lester Maddox, Bull Connor, Al Gore Sr., a portrait of the KKK, and Orville Faubus, and Sam Irvin, and Robert Sheets Byrd. I wouldn't doubt that Robert Sheets Byrd would make it in there somehow. But would you put any of those racist, eugenist, Dixiecrat a-holes in the Struggle for Justice exhibit? It would be the most absurd thing. The irony would be as thick as pudding. Unbelievable. But yet, they are struggling to revise or rewrite history by including the Margaret Sanger bust because she founded, if you didn't know, Planned Parenthood. Well, Margaret Sanger was a jagweed. She was the lowest of the low. Old spinster hag who died an alcoholic because she was angry all the time. She was a flaming racist eugenist and started Planned Parenthood, the idea of Planned Parenthood, to cleanse society of the black man by aborting all their babies. That was the plan, man. And so they're trying to rewrite history by putting her within these great black activists throughout American history. And it's just, they got to be turning over in their grave over this thing. It's just unfreaking believable. I guess there is a silver lining, however. We didn't have to pay for the bust. So at least the taxpayers didn't have to pay to have this silly thing made. It was donated by another dead old hag, Cordelia Scaife May, who's a rich old bag, and she was a population control activist. And Margaret Sanger was a population control activist too. There just happened to be one population she wanted to control more than everyone else, the little frackin'. But I guess this is to be expected from the left, who runs all these, the bureaucrats that run all these exhibits. They run the Smithsonian. They run everything in Washington, basically. And they are hell-bent on rewriting history completely, where the Democrats are the party of the poor and the downtrodden and the colored people, and the whites are the party of the rich, and the conservatives and Republicans are the party of the rich, the white, and the privileged, which is utterly, completely ass backwards. The Democrats were the party of, they were the party of the three S's: slavery, secession, and segregation. And now you can throw a fourth S in there, socialism. Well, that's actually been in the works. So it's the party of the four S's. And it was always that way. It was the Republicans who, that's where the Republican Party came from. The Civil War. Lincoln, our first Republican president. The anti-slavery president. That's where the Republican Party came from. The Democrats have always been the party of slavery, segregation, and frankly, anti-civil rights. Because frankly, if it wasn't for the Republicans in the earlys and mid-60s, and frankly, all the way back to Ike in the 50s, Eisenhower in the 50s, if it weren't for the Republicans, there would be no Civil Rights Act for LBJ to ride in on his white horse and sign, under duress, I might add, because he was a racist jerkwad too. But to include Margaret Sanger, of all people, in the exhibit of the struggle for justice, it's just unbelievable. Oh, did I say she used to speak at KKK rallies? Yes, she was the favorite speaker. She was the favored speaker at Ku Klux Klan rallies. Gee, I wonder why that is. It sure wasn't to convince them otherwise. I cannot believe it. I can absolutely believe it, because the left has been in a full court press to rewrite history for decades now, and frankly, they've done a heck of a good job. They've done a yeoman's effort, frankly, at rewriting history of just how, just turning things completely around, of how bad, evil they were for so long, and they still are, frankly. They just hide it a lot better. But this one is the topper. Margaret Sanger in the Hall of Justice. Da-da-da. Unbelievable.
You're listening to the Common Constitution. Let the truth be known.
Look out! The world's going to come to an end on November the 3rd. Let the scare tactics begin. Yahoo News prints an AP article saying that it's a huge problem for House Speaker John Boehner and a potential nightmare for his successor in waiting, Representative Paul Ryan, Republican, Wisconsin. GOP leaders promised Friday that the House will act next week, just days from a November 3rd deadline, increasing the government's $18.1 trillion borrowing cap so that it can continue to pay its bills in full and on time, which would prevent a potential meltdown in the financial markets and save the Republican Party from presiding over a default on U.S. obligations. And we all know that Yahoo News is so incredibly concerned with saving the Republican Party, as well as all leftists are incredibly concerned with saving the Republican Party from certain doom. But apparently, Congressional Republicans say they are short of necessary votes for raising the debt limit and avoiding a first ever government default. With barely a week before the deadline, there's no plan on what to do. Holy crap. The financial markets will melt down and the Earth's core will blow up. And then we're all dead, apparently, according to Yahoo News, the AP, Huffington Post, Washington Post, the New York Times, and every other leftist outfit in the nation. They're also incredibly concerned with the Republicans' welfare all of the sudden. Treasury Here we go with the scare tactics, baby. Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew, he gone to the loo, has warned lawmakers that the government's ability to use accounting steps to the counting tricks or steps. I've added the tricks part. Steps to pay its bills for here we go, baby. Here we go. Pulling out the big guns. Let's see. I should probably just start this over. You ready? Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew has warned lawmakers that government's ability to use accounting steps to pay its bills for, ready for it, veterans, Social Security recipients, federal employees, of which I couldn't give a flying blankety blank, and others will run out early next month. That jerkweed, a majority leader, Republican from California, Kevin McCarthy, the guy that just recently dropped out of the speaker's race, said the debt limit will have to be raised. Yes, of course, it has to be raised. There's no alternative but to raise the debt limit. We can't cut spending. The government can never do without a single penny. We can't cut spending. We must raise the debt limit. But we've got to do something to deal with it in the future. It's called Representative Kevin McCarthy, you wingnut, and all the other moderate, squishy, nougat in the middle, marshmallow in the middle Republicans, you little weenies. It's called starving the government of funding. That's what it is. It's called cutting departments. It's called laying off and firing thousands and thousands of useless federal employees. It's called cutting spending. And then you'll never have to raise the debt limit again, you big dopes. We go through this nonsense every single time the debt limit has magically been reached. Actually, we reached the debt limit months ago, but there was no chance of getting it raised. So the Treasury just fiddled around with the numbers, and magically the debt limit stayed at basically the exact same number for like 250 days or some silly notion. I can't remember what it was, but it was ridiculous that every time you looked at the debt limit, it was stuck at one number. As if it, how is that even possible? Of course it's not possible. None of this accounting nonsense is possible in the real world, but then again, we're not in the real world. We're the federal government. We don't need to deal in the real world. But getting back to this nonsense of the debt limit, and then if we don't raise the debt limit, Social Security recipients won't get paid. The veterans will die on the streets. Heck, the veterans are already dying on the streets thanks to the frickin' VA. Thank you very much. But that's another story. We have plenty of money rolling in to the federal coffers. It's just a question of priorities. And the president sets the priorities. If he doesn't want to pay Social Security recipients, because he wants to pay welfare recipients and illegal immigrants coming across the border, if he wants to pay for their bennies and goodies instead of the veterans, he can do so. It's up to him. It's his decision. We have lots and lots of money coming in. We could pay all of our basic obligations, and we just don't have to pay for the frills the way any budget works. If you can't afford it, you don't buy it. If you can't afford it, you can't pay for it, you don't pay for it, you don't purchase it. It's really, really that simple. And it's high time some courageous Republican went on every single show and just told all these nimrods to F off, once and for all and just tell them the way it actually is. Tell them as it actually is. That this is not the disaster they want to make it out to be. And just keep hammering it and keep hammering it until enough people understand that this is the way it works in Washington. It's all a bunch of scare tactics. It's all a bunch of crap. And we go through this every freaking time that we reach the debt limit ceiling, which is $18 trillion. I can't even imagine. You couldn't count, if you had 10 lifetimes, you couldn't count to 18 trillion. I don't know what it is, but it's, you probably stack dollar bills, $18 trillion bills, you reach to Jupiter, some such nonsense. It's just so frustrating. This country, okay, so that's enough. I guess I've had enough of this segment. Whew. Man.
You're listening to the Common Constitution. Let the truth be known.
So as I stated in the intro, the Border Patrol is in fact hiring. They need border agents. For whatever reason, I can't understand why they'd need more border agents. The border is secure, don't you know? How many times have we heard that from administration officials over the years, that the border could be no more secure than it is today? Haven't we heard that? Yes. What a crock. At any rate, so the Border Patrol is hiring, and just like a lot of companies and agencies and whatnot, they go around to colleges, and these colleges have job fairs set up every once in a while, and they have the different companies and agencies and whatever. They have booths set up, and the people come and they ask questions, and they maybe take applications, and they talk to the people that work there, and so on and so forth, and that's the way it works. And so this is the way it works. You go there and you see if you can't find a job or get recruited by one of these booth operators. And such it is that the University of California at Irvine has a job fair, and a petition circulating at the University of California students. Let me start that over again, because apparently I can't read. Okay, here we go. A petition circulating among University of California students calls for UC Irvine officials to remove a U.S. Customs and Border Protection booth from the school's upcoming fall career fair, saying the agency's presence will make the campus unsafe for students in the country illegally. Holy crud. The petition's being circulated by one of these lefty organizations that probably get entirely their whole funding from the federal government, the Obama administration. But this is change.org, and their petition is targeting the Thursday event that has more than 630 signatures so far, and states in part that having Border Patrol agents on campus, dig this, is a blatant disregard to undocumented students' safety and well-being. A blatant disregard. What about the undocumented students' blatant disregard for American United States law? What about that disregard, you jerks? The article continues. This is from the College Fix, by the way, which I've told you on a number of occasions that if you ain't reading the College Fix, EAG News, and campus reform, you don't have your finger on the pulse of the university and college system. And boy, howdy, if you want to maintain your sanity, maybe you shouldn't be reading these, because you understand what big trouble that this country is going to be in within the next generation if these little weenies end up running the country. But I digress. So the article continues. There are more than 500 students at UC Irvine who identify as undocumented students. according to the Petition, which goes on to call the border an here we go, Raza alert, to call the border an arbitrary boundary line that serves to control migration, and states the term illegal immigration is dehumanizing. Well, if you won't want to be dehumanized, don't cross the border illegally. See? Problem solved. Holy crap-a-rooney. And here this is La Raza 101, this arbitrary boundary line, where La Raza wants the United States to give back basically the entire Southwest and California to Mexicali. Frankly, if they want, they can have California. They practically have it now already, considering how many undocumented immigrants they have there. And how do you become an undocumented student? You just show up there and say, and go to class and they accept you or something? How is it that you can be an undocumented student? I don't understand that. When I went to school, you had to register and you had to pay and everything else. They just show up, hola, and they're welcomed in. What's up with that? But this is just how bad this is how bad the University of California system is. UC Irvine, Berkeley, all these just sandal-wearing, freaky-ass college campuses. UC Irvine is the same campus at which last semester a group of student government leaders voted to, are you ready for this, ban the American flag from hanging in an administration building, calling the flag offensive to some students. Luckily, they were ultimately overruled after public outcry. Frankly, I'm surprised there was any public outcry around those areas. There was even a Twitter campaign of little lefty college students. Man, these guys are just whacked. I wonder if they actually learn anything in college anymore, or they just become activists. It's Activist 102, or 101, 102, 201, Advanced Activism, and Ultimate Activism. Maybe that's what... There's probably a college major in rabble-rousing and activism now. But at any rate, there was a Twitter campaign calling the invitation of the Border Patrol Agency to the job fair a disgrace. One user even tweeted that President Obama stating that students pursuing higher education should not have to face this fear on a UC campus. That was President Obama saying that. It's just incredible. Of course, he's the ultimate rabble-rouser, community activist, community agitator, I must say. So this is just absolute insanity. And that's why I've been saying for years that forget the wall that separates us from Mexico. We need to build a wall twice as long, separating us from Mexico and then us from California. Just build a dang wall, wait for the earthquake, and then they can float out to sea, and then everybody will have beachside property where California used to be. But we can't wait that long, so we need to build the wall and just cordon off California. And unlike Donald Trump, with his massive door thing on the Mexican border, there will be no door, California. Once you're in, you have to stay there. If you choose to go there, if you choose even to vacation there, there's no coming back. There'll be anti-aircraft emplacements at the border wall to shoot down any airliners that try to escape back from California. I know that's mean and all, but boo freaking who. So that's about all I've got for today. That's all the insanity that I can stand for one day. Y'all have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week.